Well, my family was not very musical, so to speak. My mother had taken piano lessons and actually had quite a good voice, but her uncles were very, very musical. Her uncles were the Delmore brothers, who were some of country music's earliest superstars back in I think it was like the 1920s and the 1930s, things like that. They're in the Country Music Hall of Fame, actually. So, and anytime we would go to my grandmother's house, these would be her brothers. And my mother and her brother, my Uncle Bobby, they would get together and he would play guitar and he would sing. And it was, thinking back on that now, that was actually probably shaped and molded me in more ways than I realized, because being a musician was just always kind of natural. It just was like kind of the thing to do. So, but getting into band didn't really happen until I was in the 6th grade, and the young junior high school band came to play at where I was going to school in Dothan, Alabama, and I heard the band play then, and of course I didn't know what shape or form or fashion that was going to take then, but I knew I was going to be a musician. And I had no idea I was going to be a band director. I didn't know what a band director was then, except the guy waving his hands. But I knew that the die was pretty much cast at that point. I was going to do something in music. And it's kind of funny because a lot of times people will ask you throughout your career, why did you choose music? And I think back to that moment and I go, I don't think I chose music. I think it chose me. I don't know that I really had a choice. Because once that gets inside of you, there's really nothing else you can do. And having that kind of passion, in a way, musicians are kind of lucky that they have that, because a lot of times people just don't know. And they go a lifetime without ever really finding that. So joined the band at Young Junior High School in Dothan, Alabama. Gosh, I don't even know what year. That would have been in the 70s sometime. And came home, told my parents I wanted to play in the band. I wanted to play saxophone because I'd watched some beach movie on TV, and some bald-headed guy did a front flip off of a stage playing saxophone. I thought that was the coolest thing, so I wanted to play saxophone. I went home and told Mom and Dad, I want to be in the band. They said, great, your brother's got an old trumpet, you can play that. So that's what I did. I played trumpet and loved it. Practiced a lot. It was I just absolutely loved doing it, and would lug my horn home every day. Walking home, I would make my horn went home with me more days than not. I can't really think of any times I didn't take it home. And wasn't uphill both ways, and there was no snow in Dothan, but still, it was the thing. And then I got to high school and started taking lessons, and really started to get good on trumpet, for my age and everything. But I did have a couple of mentors in high school that really spurred me on. I was anything I could do musically, I did. I was involved in playing in pit orchestras in school, and I was involved in the choir program. The choir program was Harvey McClure was the director, and he was an incredible musician. As a matter of fact, he was the first one that really let me know what it could be, what it was like to be a musician. He could take high school singers and just get so much passion and so much music out of them. We had a great choir. We were singing German, Latin, different French, different Italian, different languages and stuff, and really exceptional group, and just so much music in that. That's really where I found my musical voice, myself in that. Funny story, years after I had been graduated and gone on to teaching instrumental in band, I ran into Mr. Mack, as we called him, Harvey McClure, Mr. Mack. And just so glad to say, hey, how are you? How you doing? What are you doing? Oh, that's awesome. Well, tell me, And somewhere in the course of the conversation, I realized, I went, oh dear, he thinks I'm a vocal teacher, not a band director. And I just didn't have the heart to correct him. I just let him go on with that. He was just such a wonderful, dear human. And for those of you that have those people in your life, I will say this. By the time I got around to really reaching out to him and thanking him for what he had done for me, and I know he knew it, but before I had a chance to do that, he passed away. And I don't have a lot of regrets, but boy, I sure would like to tell Mr. Mack how much he meant to me. And I know he knows, but even so, I would have loved to have done that. Played in the band. Everything was great with that. I really, really loved it. And our band program was really good. It was good for what it was and where it was and what it was doing. Our band director, Ed Hickman, back in those days, he wrote all of the music for our shows, and he wrote all of the drill too. Mr. Mack also taught music theory. So my junior year, I took music theory, and he was excellent at it. I mean, he had us writing 4-part harmony and all that kind of stuff. It was a great experience, and I loved him, and so it was a labor of love. But then my junior year, Mr. Hickman was writing the music for our halftime show. And so I spent the summer literally sitting by his side and watching him score and arrange. And that's where I learned how to write and arrange, was from watching him. So much so that he told me to pick out a song and let's work on it as a project. So I picked out Paul McCartney's Silly Love Songs. You didn't have to worry about Trey Songz in those days. But and I arranged it. I wrote it out. He helped me do it, and my high school band played it at a football game. It was a really a neat experience. You're a kid. You just kind of take things in stride. You don't realize how really incredible things like that are until years now. Look back at that and go, wow, that was actually pretty neat. Recently, because of those experiences, I like to write and arrange stuff all along. And when I went to Troy, had the opportunity to Troy State University, had the opportunity to study arranging further with Jim Mahaffey, who I think is now still in San Antonio writing for bands in Texas. But I also had the opportunity to take arranging with Paul Yoder. And Robert W. Smith and I actually were in that same class together. And I joke all the time, especially if Robert's right next to me, I go, well, we both took Paul Yoder's arranging class, and you obviously made a better grade because he's gone on and doing wonderful things. But then I'm also quick to point out, well, actually, that's not true. I made an A too. You just went on and did a whole lot more with that. But then because of those experiences, I'm writing music now and arranging and getting published now, which is really a really cool thing to do. At basically the end of one career and starting another career. But when my first piece, Summer a year ago, got accepted to be published, I tracked down Ed Hickman, my high school band director, who had showed that to me, and I talked to him and I thanked him. So I think that's really an important thing. He was so appreciative and so grateful, and he remembered. I was really kind of surprised, but he remembered. So anyway, did the high school band thing and just thoroughly enjoyed it, and really wanted to go on and become a professional trumpet player. I thought that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a professional trumpet player. So I wanted to go to FSU, which is in Dothan and Tallahassee, was probably closer or as close as Troy State was, but it was out of state. Mom and Dad were not in a position to pay for college. They hadn't saved anything, couldn't save anything, and so it was kind of pretty much on me. So I went to Troy, and I knew about the band program there, and I was very happy to be there and get there. And had to work my way through college. I paid my own way. Didn't get much assistance from mom and dad, and they helped what they could, but it was on me. And being in the Troy band really helped me to accomplish that. And it was there that I really met the person who had the most effect on my life of anybody else that I can think of. And it was Dr. Long, John M. Long, without a question. And I remember it was a strange sort of circumstances. I'd actually gone to a junior college for 3 quarters right out of high school. I went like summer, fall, winter quarter, and then spring quarter was when I started Troy. That was 1978, I guess, when I started there, and sat in Dr. Long's rehearsal. And of course, I was not used to Dr. Long or his way of doing things. So it was quite an eye-opening experience. Anybody who's watching this and said Dr. Long, you're chuckling right now because you know exactly what I'm talking about. But and we also used to complain, Dr. Long, he just talks so much. I swear he talks more than we play sometimes, and sometimes that was true. But he knew exactly what he was doing. He knew I listened to every word that man said. And he has the ability to take 17, 18, 19-year-old kids that had no confidence in themselves whatsoever. And that was me. And get them to believe in themselves just a little bit. And if you can believe in yourself just a little bit, then you can believe in yourself just a little more. And if you believe in yourself this much, then you can believe in yourself that much. And if you can believe in yourself that much, then you can believe in yourself that much. And it just spreads and it just grows. But you have to persevere. You can't give up. And you have to give up giving up. And sometimes giving up is so easy. But I was very fortunate this past year. I had the opportunity to come back and do one of the honor bands for Seuss. Dr. Mark Walker had so graciously invited me to come and to do that. And Dr. Long made it to the concert. And I hadn't really thought much about it. I knew he came around the school when he could. He wasn't always in the greatest of health in those days. And he came to the concert, and then he was coming down the aisle, and I just kind of stopped, and I just started talking and just thanked him in front of the audience and everything. And I was not prepared for the emotions that overcame me when I had that opportunity to do that. And he just had a way of, he could get you to believe in yourself. And that is so critical. If you can't believe in yourself and what you're doing, it's a struggle. And it's a struggle for most of us every day anyway. It's not a light switch that gets flipped on and it's like, oh, happily ever after. No, it's a constant struggle. But when you have that one person that's sitting there going, I know you can do it. And when you hit those times that are tough, I can still hear Dr. Long looking at me and going, Lord God, you're the greatest. And I know he said it to everybody, but he also said it to me. And that meant even after doing a 39-year career, that still means something. And it's still a little hard to get through. So did the Troy thing, graduated there, played in got to play with. As a matter of fact, my first concert with Dr. Long, I think, was the American Bandmasters Association 25th anniversary concert in Montgomery. If I remember that correctly, boy, that was a mega concert. But, and Dr. Long would bring in people like, Paul Yoder was on staff there. If you don't know anything about, he was one of the earliest ones that wrote music for school bands. And one of his GAs used to open his mail and she'd see these royalty checks and her eyes would just get real big. And Dr. Yoder used to make the joke that said, yeah, the key of B flat and E flat made me a millionaire. So I don't know if that's true or not, but if it's not, it ought to be. And but he would bring in like Bill Ravelli, Al Wright. He'd bring in all of the big name conductors in the world at the time, and they came to Troy. And you were in the presence of the very best in the world. In a little bitty old Troy, Alabama, just a wide spot on US 231 between Dothan and Montgomery, and it was great. I need to mention this too. When I was still in high school, I would drive to Troy every week for trumpet lessons from Jim Wadowicz. He was my first trumpet teacher that really got to study seriously with. So, and I owe him a big debt of gratitude too, because he really pushed me to become a really good player. And then, so of course, you know, I went to Troy. That just sort of a natural progression of things. So, and of course, I met my lovely wife, which is by far the best decision in my life at Troy, Jeannie. She was a music major too. She was a vocal major, and same as Dr. Dennison. And she also was in band. She carried the honor guard too. So we had a great time, and it was really wonderful. Got to play in a lot of pit orchestras at Troy, which kind of furthered the playing idea along. And you know, I was getting ready to graduate, and Mr. Wadowicz said, "Well, we need to start thinking about conservatories." I said, "Yeah, that would be great." And then I don't know. I just didn't want to go off and go to a conservatory. I thought about joining the Air Force Band. Arnold Gabriel was commander conductor of the Air Force Band at the time. I thought, geez, I really want to do that. And but I didn't. We graduated, and first job I ever had was in Washington, Georgia, which is way up in northeast Georgia, Wilkes County. That would have been like 1981. Jeannie and I got married that summer, and then we moved to Washington. And Allison Hayes was the previous band director there, and he became another one of my mentors, a dear friend who helped me through so much. The school system at the time, it was just a small school, country school, maybe 500 kids in the school. I think there were maybe 125 kids in the band, something like that. It wasn't small, but it wasn't just like uber large either. 100 kids somewhere in there, as best as I remember. And there was some trouble in the school system, which is why Allison was leaving. He had enough of it. He had other things that he wanted to do with his life, and I won't forget the first time I met him, and all this just came about in a hurry. Of course, this was 1970s. My hair was considerably longer than it is now, and so we had to fly out to these interviews and just didn't really have a chance to do the things we needed to do in terms of that. So went and talked to Allison, and they were talking about the length of my hair, and I said, "Oh yeah, no, it's gone. I don't care. My sense of identity is not tied to my hair. It's gone. I just haven't gotten to a barbershop yet." Like I said, I was in college, and in college, you don't really worry too much about that stuff anyway. But I won't forget, Allison sat across from me. I was a rookie teacher. He was a seasoned teacher, and this was a program he built with his bare hands. And he was leaving and wasn't really happy about it. And he looked across at me and he said, "I don't want you to take this the wrong way." He said, "But you can't do this job." And it just kind of took me aback and kind of shocked me. I was like, okay, what do you say to that? Except that it just kind of made me determined that, yes, I am going to do this job. So, and I proceeded to do just that. Dr. Long told us, you get help from anybody you can get help from. And so that's what I did. And Allison was a big part of that too. But some of the band directors at Athens, which was only an hour away, they would come and help me. And first year we had, we call it NPA in Alabama. They call it Large Group Festival in Georgia, or did then. First time my band went, I was a nervous wreck. We played Burnished Brass, Mask by Macbeth. Can't remember the other piece. It was something by Haydn though. And played the fire out of it. First year out of the box, big crowd in the audience. Band played Mask just like a galloping racehorse. Just took off with that thing and standing ovation. First year teacher, I went, oh, I've got this band directing this. This is easy. Next year we tried to play, I don't even remember what we tried to play. Now, a couple of twos in that score, a couple of threes in that score, and I realized, maybe you actually have to work at this job and teach this job. I had so much success the first year because I was playing off Allison's players and they knew what to do. I didn't realize I was the one that didn't know what to do. That next year, I got educated real quick and got back to work. And then my third year teaching, Americans We, Dedicatory Overture. Can't remember. And then we were back to making straight ones again. So, and I felt really good about that. Little advice as we go along with this: ask for help. Always ask for help. You come out of college, people that come out of college and they go, oh, well, I know all the latest and greatest techniques. Yes, you do. And you will know the latest and greatest techniques far beyond the people that have been teaching as long as you've been alive. But what you don't have is their experience. And I'll put their experience up against your new techniques any day of the week, because everybody's always trying to reinvent the wheel in this business. So anyway, stayed in Washington for 4 years. Great place. Loved being in Georgia. What a tremendous experience it was, but it wasn't home. So after 4 years, we came back to Alabama and lucky enough to land a position in Demopolis, Alabama, where I taught there for 5 years. And one of the things that I was exposed to when I was in Georgia, I would go and visit other schools. Ron Evans up at Johnson High School up in Gainesville. Ron Johnson, I can't remember what school he was at, but people that really influenced me a lot, Larry Clark at Cedar Shoals, Chris Clark at Clark High School, people that just really helped me a lot. And talking to these guys, and they kept talking about this school called Vandercook in Chicago. And I did some looking into that, and I had actually seen the little book, Expression in Music by H.A. Vandercook, where he kind of detailed out how to play music expressively. It's a great book. And I read that book and I was like, oh, this is the same, this is the book, yeah. So I did some research in that and realized that at that time, Vandercook was the place to go. If you were going to serious about instrumental music, serious about being a band director, Vandercook's where you went. So, but they had a policy and this was actually a quote from Hale Archer Vandercook. And as you walked into the building that I went to school in there, it was, walked up the steps, it was on the wall, big bold letters. And it said this, it said, no man can be rightfully taught, wasn't politically correct. No person can be rightfully taught until they see a real need in their work and in their life. If you think about it, that's really true. You can't educate yourself or learn anything unless you really see the need for it. So because of that, their policy was that they would not take anybody who hadn't taught for 4 years. And I went, okay, well, I've been teaching a couple of years. It's, well, I'm just going to go ahead and apply. I didn't think I was being arrogant at the time, but looking back, I was like, oh boy, I wish I had done that. And they sent me a nice letter saying, hey, we would love to have you, but no, they rejected me. I was like, okay. So next year came back. So, well, I've taught 3 years, so yeah, I'll send it now. No. We said 4 years. They meant 4 years. They didn't mean 2. They didn't mean 3. They meant 4. So again, it really wasn't that I was arrogant. I wanted to go. I was ready to go. I wanted to go spend summers in Chicago. I wanted to learn. I wanted to be a part of that environment. I didn't want to wait 4 years. But 4 years I waited. And so moved to Demopolis and started going to Vandercook. So, and I went there for 4 years. And again, you're right in the heart of everything. Chicago Symphony as a brass player, are you kidding me? It was amazing. One of the best teachers we had there, Roger Rocco, had studied tuba with Arnold Jacobs. We were getting all of this stuff firsthand. One of the trumpet teachers I had up there was a guy named Matt Lee. He had studied with Vincent Chikowitz, and we were getting all, it was awesome. And it was such a practical school too. Fred Lewis was the woodwind guy there. It did the wind ensemble at Naperville High School at the time. Victor Zajac was the director of bands at the time, and just wonderful teachers. And everything was real practical. Everything was real hands-on. We had to make notebooks, and we had to go to seminars, and everything had to do fingering tests, everything you can think of now to prepare you to be the best instrumental music teacher you could be. And we were there. We were at it. And it was high pressure, high intensity. I was in the practice room at 5:30 or 6 every day, and then we were up to 2 o'clock trying to figure out how to get everything done for the semester. For the 6 weeks you were there, it was a grind. And you'd have so much work to do, and the deadlines were coming. It's like, I can't get it done. I'm not gonna get it done. But you just roll up your sleeves, get to work, and you got it done. Just because, and I realize then, and I teach this to my students now, just because you can't see how something is going to work out, it doesn't mean that it's not. It just means you can't see it. That life is like a jigsaw puzzle. You keep shifting those pieces around till they all fit. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it won't. It just means you got to keep working on it. That's all it means. That's all it means. So, stayed there in Demopolis, finished up my master's degree at Vandercook, was honored enough to be elected as president of the senior class, and gave a speech at our commencement, and which was really, really, it was just an honor. It was very fulfilling, very sustaining. Came back from Demopolis, and then had a chance, my wife had a chance to come back to Alabaster, Alabama is where she was from. She had a chance to get a teaching gig, middle school and high school choir at Thompson High School in Alabaster. And so she'd been following me around for 9 years, and I'd drug her up to Chicago, and I said, well, that's fine. You've got the job. It's Birmingham. I'll find something. So she got the job, and I didn't have a job. And it was an odd sort of circumstances. But of course, we move. I don't have a job, and we find out our first son's coming along. It's like, oh, that's perfect. That's just the way it goes. So that was a very stressful summer for me because I didn't have a job, but things rock and rolled. I got the job at Irwin High School, which is no longer. And that would have been about 1990, I guess, by this time. And our son was born that January 1991, and stayed at Irwin for 3 years. But I was living in Helena at the time, Helena, Alabama, which was about a 45-minute drive. So I was actually taking my son to daycare south of Helena, and then driving back north up through Birmingham and up to the northeast side of Birmingham to go to school, and then come home. So I was leaving my house at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I wasn't getting home until 7 o'clock at night. And that was 3 years. That's not even counting football games or band booster meetings or whatever else that goes on in this crazy business we call band directing. And So after 3 years, there were some other issues too going on there. There was the feeder program was going away. So after 3 years, I said, I'm not seeing my kids grow up. We just had our son Miles at the time. So I left Irwin, and I was very fortunate to get the position at Thompson High School. Started there in 1993, just retired this past May, and fortunate enough to be there, the right person at the right time in the right place, and was able to grow with the school and the community. And the band went from 75. First rehearsal I had with the band, we had 75 kids in the band, and then we had school, and only 30 of them showed up to class. The other 2/3 of the band wasn't even enrolled in band class. They just showed up after school. I was like, okay, I'm a pretty nice guy, but that ain't gonna work. So we managed to get that fixed as best as we could, and was able to build a program there. Kevin Snowden was the first middle school band director, and then he left, and then Phil Min finished out a year that Kevin had left mid-year. And then after that, Connie Hammond came. And when Connie Hammond, the middle school program really started to flourish. And then a few years later, her husband Tim came down. It was kind of split between the middle and the high school, and getting a lot of just really quality kids and getting some good numbers into the program. And so we were able to start doing things like we started, back in those days, we still had district and state. And so, we started being successful at state contests. And it took 3 or 4 years of being at Thompson. We could get through district okay, but state was another issue. And, but we rounded that corner and we're doing well. And to the point where put in for some conferences and first got to play for Seuss, the Troy Conference there, which was really awesome, incredible experience. Dr. Long had given us that. I don't remember who the director of bands was. It must have been Ralph Ford at the time that was the director there, or maybe Dr. Long was. Anyway, I don't remember. Stephen Malello was a composer in residence and heard the band. It was just very, very complimentary about the musicality of the group, which really meant a lot to me. And then later on, that led to performances at Alabama Honor Band, a couple of performances there actually. We've done that twice. It led to us putting in and performing for CBDNA and the NBA Southern Division. I was at Kennesaw College the year that we got to do that. Again, a lot of really great exposure for a band program. We were fortunate enough to play for JanFest at the University of Georgia. Again, just the kids were just really doing well, and the band program was really having a lot of success. Some of the biggest performances, though, that really meant a lot to me, and that was when the band was selected to perform for the National Concert Band Festival in Indianapolis. And I don't remember the first time that happened, 2005, maybe 2007, somewhere in there, or 2001, I can't remember the exact year. But taking that little bitty band from Alabaster, Alabama, and playing Capriccio Espanol, playing Lincolnshire Posy, playing Dakota Rhapsody, and Mark Camphouse piece, and playing it for these guys. The first time I put in to play for the National Concert Band Festival, I was told we were not nearly good enough. It was not the most positive rejection I got. Some of the commentators were pretty rough. I thought, well, we don't need to be doing that. But you know what? If you give up earlier, I had to remember that I'd given up giving up. So we applied again, and then we got to go and got to play a little bit of music like that. Jerry Junkin was one of the commentators. And I wasn't up there, but Robert Smith was. And after we started playing, finished our first tune, Jerry Junkin made the comment to some of the people up there, who are these people? Where did this group come from? And of course, Robert Smith knew me, and he was just, well, let me just tell you about that group. And he did. We played Lincolnshire Posy, and the band just did such a fantastic job. That was just a seminal moment in my life. So much so that 5 or 6 years we did it again. And again, just a tremendous experience. And but through that association, meeting people again, Dick Floyd was one of our clinicians, and we were at a get together after that, and I said, Mr. Floyd, thank you so much for your comments. It was a great clinic. Oh my gosh, the best thing my kids had ever done. And I said, how do I get somebody like you to come work my band? And he just looked up at me, if you guys know Dick in his Texas kind of way, he's doing, ask. And so I asked, I said, will you come work my band? He said, sure, what do you want to do? It was like, wait, that was not just that easy. If you ever get a chance to be around Dick Floyd, he's just an incredible musician, and his wife Cheryl. They eat, live, and breathe band, but in a way that is just so healthy and so fulfilling. He wrote a book, Artistry and Music. You need to get that book. It is the absolute Bible in how to clinic band. So that began an 8-year, Dick has come in, worked our band every year for the last 8 years since then. So I guess it was around 2011 then that when all that happened, evidently. So, and every year he would come and he'd spend 2 or 3 days with the Thompson Band Program, and that's what I give credit to the rise in that. He remains a very loyal and valuable friend too. There were also some local mentors in the area too. I was still sort of a young band director and in awe of a lot of the area high school guys. And one of the hottest programs when I first came to Alabaster was the Pelham High School Band, and Jim Dern was the director there. And he could get that band to play anything, it seemed to me, and they just sounded gorgeous. And I thought, I want my band to do that. So I kind of modeled myself after that and did the things that Jim did to make his program successful. And one of the things he did was he had sectionals after school. As soon as marching band was over, they just kept going. And he would have sectionals for his kids after school. The Grissom Band program in Huntsville does the same thing. And this is being taped at AMEA in 2020. And the Grissom Band played here last night, and it was a seminal performance. It was amazing performance. But anyway, that's where I got the idea to start doing sectional work with my bands. And, every Monday, it was high woodwinds. Here we go. Every Tuesday, it was going to be low brass and low reeds. Get in here, let's go. 3:15 to 4:30, we're at it. And every Thursday, it was high brass. All right, come on, sit down, get it out, let's go. We're playing, we're not talking, we're busy playing. Thursdays, I left open for percussions if we need it. And I really credit the hard work we did in those sectionals for the success of the Thompson Band program. We just persevered. We just put our shoulders down and just dug in and just worked hard to make it happen. And Dick started his association with us, and he told us it's better to be expressive than impressive. So we backed off things just a little bit. We didn't always have to be the hardest piece of music we could find, but find ways of making music, and that's what we've done since then. And it's been an incredible journey, and and now still teaching some. Still fortunate enough that we were able to hire a staff when Thompson High School pulled out of Shelby County Schools and became Alabaster City Schools. They started hiring additional staff for us, and wonderful person that's the lead director at Thompson now, Justin White, is going to do a lot of good things. Dear friend, dear colleague, and very gracious to continue to be working there now, and starting another career, writing some music, getting some things published, and and we'll just kind of see where that goes. So for younger teachers, just ask for help. You may know the latest and the greatest, but you don't know it all. You don't have the experience. You have to have a passion for this job. You have to have a passion for the music. You have to have a passion for the kids. You have to have a passion for seeing your passion light up in their eyes. And I think for me, that was through the music that we played. So whatever you do, don't stop learning. Always learn. Be passionate about learning. And always swing for the fences. Always.